At my daughter's wedding, I watched her twirl in the gown I had once worn when I married Walter, the gown I had guarded for decades like a treasure. But before the guests, she laughed. "It's just an old dress. Cheap, really. I only wore it for the story." In that instant, the happiest day of her life became the day I realized I was no longer a mother to be cherished, but a burden to be mocked. My heart clenched. That dress had been the symbol of my youth, my love, my sacrifice. To her, it was just a prop. And then, the words that shattered everything. Ashley leaned toward her new mother-in-law, Victoria, whose pearls gleamed like tiny cold moons around her neck. Ashley's voice dropped, but I was close enough to hear, "She's nothing like you. My mother is just a pathetic failure, a woman who wasted her life in some dusty library. 30 years as a librarian. Can you imagine anything more depressing?" My breath caught. I wanted to disappear into the marble floor. My daughter's voice, dismissing me as though I were nothing. Victoria gave a tight smile, sipping her wine. At least she knows her place. That counts for something. I gripped my glass so hard my knuckles went white. Her place. After all the sacrifices, the nights I stayed up with sick children, the double shifts to help Ashley through college, this was the judgment. That I was small, unimportant, invisible. But what Ashley didn't know was that I carried something in my purse that day. An envelope, its edges worn from years of waiting. Walter, my husband, had given it to me just before he passed, his voice weak but steady. "Helen, if she ever turns cruel, if she ever forgets who you are, read this. Promise me." I had promised. And now, as I watched my daughter glide across the dance floor, laughing with Carter, her polished husband, I knew Walter had seen something I hadn't. He had seen this change coming. The ceremony itself was flawless, the kind that magazines would photograph. Manicured gardens, a string quartet, guests sipping champagne in crystal flutes. Yet every perfect detail pressed against me like a weight, reminding me of how small my life seemed in comparison. During the father-daughter dance, they played Walter's favorite song. Ashley danced with Carter instead, radiant and unbothered. Not once did her eyes flicker toward the small framed photo of Walter I had placed at the front table, his smile frozen in time. It was then I knew. This wasn't just about a cruel comment. Something in Ashley had shifted, something Walter had tried to warn me about. Later that evening, as servers cleared plates of salmon and sorbet, I sat at my assigned table in the shadows. My companions, Carter's distant relatives, spoke politely about weather and travel, carefully avoiding questions about me. I was the afterthought, the mother of the bride who didn't belong. And yet, even in that loneliness, I felt Walter beside me. His voice in my memory, "Don't let her break you, Helen. Don't let her forget what you've given." The night wore on. I slipped away to the estate's library, lined with books that looked untouched, more for display than use. My fingers brushed the spines, longing for the quiet comfort of real libraries, the smell of ink and paper, the hundreds of nights I had spent cataloging books for families who couldn't afford their own. That had been my life's work, my joy, and Ashley called it worthless. I pulled the envelope from my purse. Walter's handwriting, shaky but determined, read, "For Helen, if you need it." My chest tightened. I hadn't dared open it in years. I did not yet know what was inside, but in that moment, I felt the weight of every sacrifice I had made. The world might see me as a failure. My daughter might call me pathetic. But Walter knew the truth. Before I could open it, the sound of voices drifted through the hallway. I pressed against the wall and listened. Ashley again, her voice sharper now. "I told Carter, we need to think about her future. She can't keep living alone. She'll drain everything with medical bills. If we place her at Meadowbrook Manor, it secures peace of mind. They have this program, asset transfer. She'll sign everything over. It's safer that way." My knees nearly buckled. My daughter, planning to place me in a facility, not out of care, but convenience, talking about my assets as if I were already gone. And then Victoria's cold reply, "Smart girl. Best to deal with these matters before they become messy. You don't want her clinging around, embarrassing you in front of people who matter." The glass in my hand shook. My own flesh and blood conspiring to erase me from her new life. I wanted to scream, to rush into the room and confront her, but something held me back. Walter's voice in my memory. "Don't act on anger. Prepare. Be ready." I tucked the envelope back into my purse, my heart pounding with both fury and clarity. This was no longer about my hurt feelings. It was about survival. If you've ever felt cast aside by your own child, if you've ever heard words that cut so deep they echo in your bones, you're not alone. And I ask you, if you had been in my place, what would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet, or would you have fought back? Before we dive deeper into this story, let me pause for just a moment. Before going further into today's dramatic tale, don't forget to subscribe to Tangled Heart Stories and ring the notification bell. Here, you'll always find stories of sacrifice, betrayal, and the unexpected twists that turn the tables. And tell me, where are you watching from? Leave a comment below. Who knows? The next story might just echo your own experience. As the night drew to a close, I returned to my small apartment in Hartford. The gown hung loose on my shoulders. The glittering images of chandeliers and pearls followed me home like ghosts. I sat in my dim kitchen, the envelope before me. The silence was heavy, broken only by the ticking clock. With trembling hands, I opened it. Walter's words spilled onto the page. "My dearest Helen, if you are reading this, then Ashley has shown you who she has become. I'm sorry, love, but you must know the truth. In my final weeks, I saw her asking questions about our finances, our will. She brought brochures for a place called Meadowbrook Manor. She said it was planning ahead, but I saw calculation, not care. I changed everything. It all belongs to you now. She cannot contest it. Remember, you are not a burden. You are the best thing I ever did with my life. Don't let her convince you otherwise. Forever yours, Walter." Tears blurred my vision. My husband, even in death, had seen this storm coming, and he had armed me with the truth. But this was only the beginning, because Ashley wasn't done with her plans, and I wasn't done being her mother. I didn't sleep that night. Walter's letter lay on the kitchen table like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. Steady, certain, impossible to ignore. Every sentence pulled thread from thread until the story I'd told myself about my daughter unraveled in my hands. By dawn, the apartment was blue with winter light. I made coffee, watched it steam, and thought of the girl I had raised. The one who wrote notes on my lunch napkins and tucked them in my purse before school field trips. When did she become someone who could plan my disappearance with a brochure? The phone vibrated. A text from Ashley, bright and breezy like a magazine cover. "Lunch tomorrow. There's a new bistro in West Hartford. My treat." Before I could answer, another came. "We can chat about your apartment, Mom, and your safety. I found a wonderful community. You'll love it. A community." The euphemisms always sounded gentle, like down pillows, until you tried to breathe through them. I typed, "Yes, tomorrow is fine." But I wasn't walking in blind. I went to the hall closet and pulled down a shoebox. Inside were rent receipts, prescriptions, photocopied insurance cards, a tiny ledger of my months since Walter died. I wasn't a naive woman. I had spent 30 years in a library watching people search for answers they were afraid to speak out loud. I knew how to keep records. I knew how to find things no one thought to hide. That afternoon, I carried Walter's letter in my purse, not as a weapon, but as a reminder. Somewhere beyond time, a good man still stood at my shoulder. The library doors groaned open like old friends. Susan was at the returns desk, hair pinned with a pencil. She saw my face and didn't ask the wrong question. "Back room?" she said. I nodded. We searched public records, state licensing sites, ethics complaints, inspection reports. On the third page, we found it. Meadowbrook Manor, Advisory Review, Marketing Practices Targeting Vulnerable Seniors, Asset Transfer Program. The words glowed with ugly certainty. "They're not all monsters," Susan murmured. "But this place, they're efficient." "Efficient," I repeated, like replacing a mother with a process. We printed a handful of documents. Not all, not yet. Just enough to show a pattern. At the door, Susan pressed my hand. "Promise me you won't sign anything without me or a lawyer present." "I promise." I slid the papers into my purse. Walter told me to be ready. Now I was. As I left, my hand brushed the spine of a teal book on the display table. Boundaries for Adult Children and Aging Parents. Such a modern word for such an old need. The next day, the bistro Ashley chose was all glass and chrome, the kitchen clattering like applause. She was already seated, lip gloss shining, her phone face down like a sleeping animal. "Mom," she said, rising to kiss my cheek, "you look tired. Are you eating? Sleeping?" The concern was practiced, rehearsed in Victoria's cadence. "I eat," I said. "I sleep." I smiled like a woman who had survived worse. She ordered without asking, arugula salad, lemon water, then leaned forward. "Okay, so, your apartment. The neighborhood isn't great. Carter and I are worried. And you do seem a little scattered." "You forgot our call last week." She gave a sympathetic shrug. "It happens." I hadn't forgotten. I had let it ring. There's a difference. "Everyone forgets," I said softly. "Even daughters who misplace their envelopes." Her brows pinched. "What do you mean?" I reached into my purse, not for the folder of records. Not yet. Instead, I laid down the glossy brochure I had found. Meadowbrook Manor, Where Peace Meets Care. Ashley's smile faltered. "Oh, that. Mom, it's just planning ahead. You look exhausted. What if something happens? You're alone." "I was alone when your father was dying," I said evenly. "You were there sometimes. But mostly it was me in the night. And do you know what I learned? That I can live through things you can't imagine and still remember my own name." For a flicker, she looked 12 again, the girl afraid of storms. Then the mask returned, PR polished. "Meadowbrook is elite," she insisted. "They have an asset transfer program that protects residents. You'd never worry about money again." "Protects residents," I echoed. "Or protects itself from residents." She sighed. "Mom, don't be difficult. We all want what's best for you." "We?" I asked. "Carter or Victoria?" "Everyone," she said firmly. "Our family." There it was, the theft of pronouns. Our family, the one that didn't include me. The salads arrived. We ate in silence. When the plates cleared, Ashley folded her hands like a judge. "They have an opening next month," she said softly. "Mom, this would be easier if you trusted me." I placed Walter's letter on the table. "Your father trusted you, and he asked me to trust myself." Her eyes caught the handwriting. For a heartbeat, she was that little girl again. Then she looked away. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," she said. And the sentence was so perfectly Victoria's that I almost laughed. "If you ever sat across from your child and heard her call you a failure," I whispered, "you might be careful too." Ashley's face went blank. "I never said that." "I heard you," I said. "You were looking right at me and you didn't see me." Her jaw tightened. "You're taking things out of context." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe context is the mask we wear when truth feels inconvenient." She tossed her napkin down. "I have a meeting. Carter and I will call you. We can discuss next steps." The words were paper cuts, small, stinging, meant to make me flinch. When she left, the server refilled my water with quiet kindness. I sat alone, not ready to carry my stillness back onto the street. A young couple near the window laughed over dessert, arms brushing. For a moment, I saw Walter and me again. The night we believed we could hold a life together without dropping it. Walter's voice hung in the air, not loud, but clear enough to silence every breath in that living room. "Helen is not a burden. She is my partner, my love, and she deserves respect. If anyone, even you, Ashley, tries to make her feel small or powerless, then you are not the daughter I raised. Do not mistake her kindness for weakness. And do not forget, I left everything in her care because I trusted her to protect what matters." The recorder clicked softly as the file ended. For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, steady and cold. Ashley's face had gone pale. Carter's eyes darted from her to Victoria as though trying to understand which truth he was supposed to accept. Victoria's lips pressed into a line so thin it looked like it could cut glass. I sat still in the single chair they had placed for me, as if I were the defendant in a trial. Only now, the witness they hadn't expected had already testified. Ashley cleared her throat, reaching for the folder on the table. "That recording, it's old. Dad wasn't himself near the end. He was emotional. We all know grief makes people say dramatic things." I leaned forward. "Walter was more lucid in his final weeks than you give him credit for. He saw through facades. He saw you, Ashley, and he still loved you enough to warn me." Her hand froze on the folder. Carter shifted, unease creasing his brow. Victoria interjected smoothly, "Helen, no one doubts Walter adored you, but we have to face reality. You're alone now, you need structure, and these documents," she tapped the folder, "are for your protection." I smiled, a small tired smile. "Is that what you call it? Protection? Because from where I sit, it looks a lot like erasure." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand the world we live in, Helen. Appearances matter. Carter's career, Ashley's place in our circle, these things require stability. If you wander about with your simple habits, clinging to old dresses and libraries, you'll only embarrass her." Ashley flinched. "Mother, Victoria, please." But the words had already slipped. Embarrass her. That was the truth under all the sugar. I took a breath, then pulled Walter's handwritten letter from my purse. The paper, yellowed at the edges, carried his familiar script. I laid it gently on the folder they had hoped I would sign. "This is what Walter left me," I said. "Not just assets, not just property, but his faith in me. In this letter, he names every fear he had about your intentions. He mentions Meadowbrook Manor. He warns me, and he makes it clear, everything is mine to decide, not yours, not Ashley's. Certainly not yours, Victoria." I pushed the letter forward. Carter's hand reached for it, but Ashley snatched it first, scanning the words with growing horror. Her lips trembled. He actually, yes, I said softly. He actually did. He saw you pressuring him while he was sick. He heard the questions you asked, and he left me this to remind me that I am not senile, not a fool, and not disposable. Ashley set the letter down. Her eyes filling with tears, she blinked furiously away. Carter looked at me, his jaw tight. Is this true, Ashley? Did you really bring brochures about that place when your father was dying? I thought it was planning ahead, she snapped, her voice breaking. You don't understand. Mom has no savings. She'll drain us dry. She's not draining anyone, Carter interrupted sharply. Your father left her everything. She can take care of herself. The shock in his tone was raw. He hadn't known. They hadn't told him. Victoria's hand shot out, grasping Ashley's wrist. Don't lose your composure. This is exactly what I warned you about. The moment you show weakness, she wins. She? I said, my voice cold. I am not she. I am Helen. I am Ashley's mother. And I am done being spoken of as though I were a problem to manage. I reached into my bag again and pulled out the folder of documents Susan and I had gathered from the library. Do you want to know what else Walter warned me about? I spread the papers across the table. Meadowbrook Manor is under investigation for coercing widows into signing over assets. Families have filed complaints. Legal boards are reviewing their contracts. You call this protection? I call it theft. Victoria's face blanched for the first time. Carter picked up one of the sheets, skimming it quickly, his eyes darkening. This is real? He demanded. You were going to put her in a place like this? Ashley shook her head violently. I didn't know. It's just a brochure. You knew, Carter said. His voice cracked like a whip. You knew enough to suggest it. While your father was dying, you were already making plans. The room fractured. Ashley's tears spilled over, streaking her makeup. Victoria's calm veneer shattered into anger. This is all manipulation, she hissed. Walter's gone, Helen. Stop clinging to his memory as if it were proof of anything. Families like ours have to make hard choices. If you can't see that, families like yours? I interrupted, my voice rising for the first time. Then perhaps that's what Ashley has now. But I will not be erased from mine, not by you, not by anyone. The silence that followed was heavy, brittle. Carter rose to his feet. This ends tonight. We are not coercing my wife's mother into signing her life away, and if either of you, he turned to Victoria and Ashley, think I will stand by while you manipulate her, you don't know me at all. Then, in a gesture I will never forget, he lifted the folder of legal documents from the coffee table, tore it cleanly in half, and dropped the pieces onto the floor. Ashley gasped. Victoria stared at him, aghast. And for the first time all evening, I exhaled. If you were in my chair watching your son-in-law rip apart the papers meant to rob you of your dignity, what would you feel? Relief? Vindication? Or a sorrow too deep to name? Ashley buried her face in her hands, sobbing quietly. Carter placed a hand on her shoulder, but she shrugged it off. Victoria rose, pearls trembling against her throat, and hissed, You've made a grave mistake, Helen. You think you've won tonight, but you've ruined your daughter's future. Do you want to be remembered as the mother who humiliated her on her wedding week? I stood slowly. My knees ached, but my back was straighter than it had been in years. No, I said. I want to be remembered as the mother who refused to disappear. And with that, I turned and walked out, the cool night air filling my lungs like freedom. On the bus ride home, I pressed the recorder off and slipped it back into my purse. Walter's voice still lingered in my ears, but so did Ashley's tears. My heart was heavy, but steady. This was not the end of our story. but it was the end of my silence. The next morning, sunlight streamed through my kitchen blinds, falling in narrow bands across the table where Walter's letter still rested. I sat there, coffee cooling in my hands, staring at the torn fragments of the legal folder I had carried home in my purse. Carter had ripped it, yes, but I had gathered the pieces, proof that someone someday might ask me to explain what had nearly happened. My phone buzzed. Ashley. I let it ring until voicemail caught her words. Mom, please. I need to talk to you. Not with Carter. Not with Victoria. Just us. Please. Her voice was small, almost childlike. For the first time in weeks, I heard not the polished PR woman, not the ambitious daughter chasing approval, but the little girl who used to curl beside me during thunderstorms, whispering that she was afraid of the dark. I called her back. Ashley, I said softly. Silence, then a shaky inhale. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to get so ugly. It got ugly, I said, because you let it. I know, her voice cracked. Can we meet? Somewhere private? Come here, I said. My home, tonight. That evening, Ashley arrived without makeup, hair tied back, dressed not for show but for comfort. She stepped inside hesitantly, like a guest instead of a daughter. I had brownies waiting, leftovers from the batch I'd taken to her house. I set a plate between us. She didn't reach for them. Mom, she whispered. I was wrong. I said nothing. Tears filled her eyes. I don't even know when I became this. When Dad got sick, I panicked. I was scared. I kept thinking about bills, about Carter's career, about appearances. I thought if I could just make everything neat, I'd feel safe. But all I did was hurt you. I watched her crumble. It should have brought me relief, but instead, it broke something open in me too. For months, I had carried anger like armor. Now, in front of me, was the same girl who used to slip me paper hearts cut from construction paper. Do you know what hurt most? I asked gently. It wasn't the brochures. It wasn't the schemes. It was hearing you call me pathetic. That word didn't come from fear. It came from contempt. She sobbed. I was trying to impress Victoria, to prove I belonged in her world. I thought if I showed her I wasn't like you, she'd respect me. And did it work? Ashley shook her head miserably. She'll never respect me. Not really. We sat in silence, broken only by her quiet crying. At last I pushed the brownie plate toward her. Eat something, I said softly. You look like you haven't eaten in days. She gave a watery laugh and took a small bite. It was clumsy, but it was a start. Mom, she whispered after a long pause, I want to make this right. I started therapy yesterday. The counselor says I need to untangle where my voice ends and Victoria's begins. But I want you to know, I am trying. I closed my eyes. Walter's letter still echoed in my heart. Don't let her break you. But don't forget you love her. Weeks passed. Therapy didn't fix everything overnight, but Ashley began to call, real calls, not scripted check-ins. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she just sat on the line while I read aloud passages from the book she had once loved as a child. There were days I wanted to slam the phone down, to tell her she had lost the right to my comfort. But I didn't, because love is stubborn. Carter came by too, awkward but earnest. I'm sorry, he told me one afternoon. I should have seen it sooner. I was so focused on work, I let Victoria fill the silence. I won't let that happen again. I nodded. Words matter, Carter. But so do choices. Protect my daughter, even from herself. He promised he would. Victoria, on the other hand, was not so contrite. She called once, her voice sharp as broken glass. You've poisoned her against me. Don't think I don't know. Victoria, I said evenly. The poison was yours long before I arrived. I only stopped drinking it. She hung up. I haven't heard from her since. 6 months later, I stood in the airport terminal, suitcase by my side. Ashley and Carter had insisted on driving me. They hugged me tightly before I walked towards security, Ashley's tears dampening my shoulder. Mom, she whispered, please come back soon. I'll miss you. I'll be back, I promised. But I need to see the world Walter and I dreamed of. Ireland, the cliffs, the green fields. He wanted me to stand there someday, she nodded. Dad was right. You're stronger than anyone I know. As I walked toward my gate, Walter's words from his letter echoed once more. You are not a burden. You are the best thing I ever did with my life. If you've ever been made to feel invisible by your own child, if you've ever questioned your worth because of someone else's contempt, remember this. Your value is not defined by who fails to see it. Respect isn't given by blood, it's earned through love and kindness. So I ask you, if you were me, would you forgive? Or would you hold on to the anger a little longer? Tell me in the comments. And if this story has touched you, don't forget to subscribe to Tangled Heart Stories. Here, you'll always find tales of sacrifice, betrayal, and the unexpected twists that restore justice, because no one deserves to suffer in silence.